So today we're going to be continuing to look at the alternative future of the world. We are now on part 19, which means next episode is the finale for the series. That's right, you heard me. The alternative future of the world series will be ending next episode, but don't fret because there is going to be a season 2 coming out shortly after, in which is going to be a little bit different than this series was. But let's go ahead and jump right into the recap. So last time we had a lot happen, as every episode, of course, there's always going to be a lot happening. We had a series of wars in Africa, which led to there being a big three, with the formation and creation of the European order, which is not really European anymore, with Ethiopia and Argentina joining it. So it's more of just a new, we'll call them the Central Powers. So we have the Allies, the Central Powers, and the Axis. It's a little bit of a mingle of the first two world wars. That alliance was created and expanded. We have the Red Team, aka the Axis, losing a little bit of land through all the African stuff, and then of course the Yellow Team, aka the Central Powers, was doing a lot of expanding over here in Central Europe. And now we're shaping up to have a pretty big finale for the series, with a lot of countries on a lot of different teams. So if you do enjoy this alternative future video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. That's going to help us reach our goals. We were aiming for 105,000 by the end of the month, which means we have, so you're seeing this on the 29th, so 2 days after this to get to 105k. I think we can probably do it. It would be pretty cool if we do. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the war. That's right, I said war. Russia declares war on Sweden. Now this development is a pretty foreseen one. The Scandinavian countries were being very neutral and not doing much, and Russia is the quite opposite of that. They're being not very neutral and doing a lot, although in recent videos they haven't really been doing too much, but still they have been doing. So, like I said, Russia declares war on Sweden and their troops immediately start to flood into northern Sweden. This country was a previous member of the WDO, and that kind of got destroyed, and they never rejoined the Allies, so they're left to kind of rot. Now, why didn't they join the Allies? I have no idea. There was probably a reason that I said before that I forgot. That's what happens when you space out a series as far as I do. But at a landing down here near Stockholm and the eventual capturing of the city, it is pretty much going to spell out Sweden's defeat as they push over to the borders of Norway and cut the country into two. This area, no people. This area, a lot of people. Therefore, this area, easy to take. They're going to take a few islands and slowly make their way into Sweden until eventually the government is forced to surrender over. And now we can take a look at a peace treaty. All right, in this peace treaty here, we have Sweden being forced into a puppet government of Russia. I can't really show that on the map since it's a blank world map, but do know the Swedish government is technically a Russian government and they are forced onto the Axis, and this is going to scare Norway. Rightfully so. I would be scared too. So now with a lot of pressure on them, they're going to go ahead and make the pretty smart decision of joining an alliance. Said alliance is going to be the Allies, of course. And do you remember the WDO was limited from reforming, aka the Allies? The treaty is kind of weird because it was a weird treaty. I can't really describe it well. But the Allies are not allowed to necessarily reform the WDO and expand as much as they were in Europe specifically. They haven't necessarily done that, but they do reach from Spain to Turkey and up north to Norway. So Russia could technically say that's a violation, but they're not going to, because I say they're not going to. Also, we got the windows open today. It is springtime, and I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot by opening my windows because of my allergies. But hey, that window, if you didn't know it's a window, it is a window, is open. Also, concerning the 100k specials, I don't know. Anyway, back to the video. Ireland is joining the Allies due to just feeling lonely, being neutral. Speaking of neutral, Switzerland has not changed at all this entire series. Now, I'm just now realizing something. Did I release the Caribbean? I don't think I did, but I don't remember if I made them release the Caribbean. So we're going to say they're still American. And if they're not American, they join the Allies. Solutions. All right, sides are shaping up, and China just did something funny. Except remember, it's not necessarily China. These are technically robots. Remember, the Tibetan robots expanded into China and took over their government. And now Robo-China is going to attack the remainder of Siam. They invade down into the country and go through the jungles of Vietnam, as well as Cambodia and Laos. Slowly but surely, but do remember these are robotic things, so they kind of don't care. Don't care in the sense that like the jungles won't slow them down. They're AI. They move through the tail of Thailand and eventually their entire country is captured, which is going to lead to their annexation. All right, so China is now spreading down to Southeast Asia and they have gotten themselves Siam. So now where do they go? If they wanted to keep going, they could just kind of go down to Indonesia. But unfortunately for them, Indonesia just joined an alliance. And the alliance that they're going to join is actually going to be the Central Powers, who are now expanding to all corners of the world, or I guess corners of the map, because technically, you know, it's a globe, so it wraps around. Now the Axis is kind of wondering who their biggest threat is. Is it going to be the Central Powers, or is it going to be the Allies? Well, that decision is about to be made very clear. Sakhalin should be Russian because of the peace treaty. Ignore my ignorance. But staying in this region, Japan is going to join the Allies. And this is going to kind of piss off Russia a little bit. Understandably so. They said no more expansion for the blue team. The blue team just expanded more. And now Russia is threatening to invoke the, well, I guess the countermeasure to the Allies expanding. They send an ultimatum over to the Allies saying, if you expand one more diddly darn time, we are going to invade you. The Allies say, okay. Literally just send a note back, a giant piece of paper that just says, okay. So they don't expand anymore for now. Over in the Americas here, we're gonna have a pretty interesting war breakout that has nothing to do with the major alliances. First of all, we have Mexico declaring war on the Central American Union, which recently just broke away from the Axis and that whole Civil War thingy that happened. And Mexico recently also got away from the United States' rule. These are two countries that are kind of fresh in terms of like being themselves and not under the grasp. They're independent, basically. These guys are not as stacked as they once were. Then that's because the access is not there anymore. I'm closing the window because there are dogs barking. All right, the Mexicans invade up into Belize and down into Guatemala. The Central Americans are kind of like, they're baffled right now because they weren't expecting this and also because they can't defend themselves. Mexico has a crap ton of US equipment and as well as Axis equipment from the war that was left over in their country, whereas in the Central American Union, the Axis, when they left, took everything. Mexico strong, Central America, not so strong. Eventually, Colombia is going to rejoin in this war in order to reclaim Panama, which they haven't had for centuries now. But hey, better late than never. They invade up over from this area, which you cannot invade, but they just invaded it anyway, over across the canal and up into Panama. Meanwhile, the Mexicans slowed down the coast of Nicaragua and finally into Costa Rica, where we had the two sides eventually meeting up into Costa Rica. And now they're going to divide up the country, more so give it to Mexico, but also Colombia gets some stuff. So let's take a look at that deal. All right, so as we can see, Mexico has gained a lot of land, including Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, as well as a little bit of northern Costa Rica, whereas all of Panama and a little bit of Costa Rica has gone over to Colombia. With this development, the United States is going to go ahead and send a diplomat down to Mexico as well as Colombia to kind of talk things over and say, hey, what are your ambitions for the future? Do you plan on joining any alliances? And are you a threat to us in our alliance? Colombia is going to go ahead and say, no, we are not a threat to you. In fact, we are planning on joining your alliance. However, the Russians are kind of cock-blocking us from doing so, so we can't do that right now. Another thing that Colombia tells America is that they are planning on uniting with Ecuador, who, as you remember from not too long ago, was released from Grand Colombia, which was broken up. And it looks like that didn't last long because Colombia is slowly but surely reforming themselves. Mexico, on the other hand, tells the United States to screw off. The US didn't like that, so they put troops on their borders. And in response to that, the Mexicans are going to go ahead and turn to mustard. So, Mexico just joined the Central Powers. Something that could have happened in World War I, but luckily it didn't happen. So, yeah, they don't like America's attitude. They were, you know, kind of invaded by America not too long ago. So they're going to go ahead and join an alliance that isn't involved with America. This time, the Central Powers, because there's a lot of people joining that for some reason. Hey, remember when I said Colombia and Ecuador are going to unite? Boom. Grand Colombia is essentially reformed this time without Venezuela, but it could very easily be reintegrated. And the world is looking very, kind of split. Of course, the Axis has the utmost of advantages right now, having a peace treaty over the Allies and preventing their expansion. They basically just have them under their thumb. As for the Central Powers, though, that's a completely separate entity that has nothing to do with the Axis, so they can't really stop their prevention other than, like, blocking them from invading other countries. By that, I mean they could invade Colombia to stop Mexico from invading into Colombia. But they're not going to do that because that would make the United States very angry. You don't want to make them angry, except they're not as strong as they are today. So maybe you can. I don't know. So now we have Greece falling apart. That's a quick turn of events, I know. These poor guys are not allowed to be neutral. No, that's actually literally what the Axis just said. No neutrality on our borders. Be wary. Be very wary. So the Axis starts their invasion of Greece. They move into its panhandle and start to invade around until eventually the Allies declare war on Greece in order to counteract their expansion. Now, Russia said no expanding via alliance, but they didn't say no expanding via war. Aha. Get thought on. I don't know what that means. So the Allies start to invade Greece's islands, and Albania starts an invasion into northern Greece. Are they actually this strong? No, but we're going to assume they are. They just had an empire, so maybe they are this strong. Who knows? But the Allies are going to block the Axis from the rest of mainland Greece, who's going to fall over to the rest of the Allies. And now we look at this peace deal, which is going to be a very tense one with, you know, the Axis and the Allies being involved. Bulgaria really wants to argue the fact that this is a violation of the treaty. Russia says it's technically not, but, you know, it kind of is. So you're on the hot seat, blue team. Blue team tells them to screw off again. And yeah, it's just back and forth at this point. All right, looking at this deal here, we can see that Greece is forced onto the Allies. Once again, kind of sketchy, might be a violation, but technically it isn't because they didn't join the alliance or forced into the alliance. Turkey gets a little bit of land out of here. Bulgaria gets their entire panhandle. And weirdly enough, somehow Cyprus ends up on the blue team. Yeah, it was a weird kind of like condition on the treaty where Cyprus was like mentioned and then it was written down and then Allied troops showed up there and then they were on the blue team. Extortion and exploration, said the blue team. Get wrecked. Europe has now officially chosen a side, and yeah, oh no. When Europe fully chooses a side, the world starts to choose sides, and from here it's gonna get kind of spicy. Spicy mustard, that is. Uruguay joins in on the yellow team, as well as South Africa. That's a pretty big one, literally. And the final remaining countries are going to go to 2 other teams, but the problem with that is that no one can join the blue team, so they must be joining the red team, right? Well, no. The 2 sides start to gear up, and there's troops on every single border that isn't allied. Everyone's waiting for the pull of the trigger, but the ignition of this war will not be caused by the pull of a trigger. Instead, it will be instigated by a signature with pen and paper. In all coordinates, Colombia, Chile, Australia, New Zealand, and the Philippines all join in on the Allies, an operation known as Operation Defiance. The Axis is notified of this, and the leaders all meet in Iran, specifically the Big Four, aka Egypt, India, Russia, and Iran itself. They all meet in Tehran and discuss what is going to happen. Obviously, this is a violation of the treaty and war can happen because of this, but are they willing to go to that measure? The answer is in, and it is yes. This war will be to rid the Allies of existence, take over as much land as possible, and replace their governments with red team sponsored governments. The Axis and the Allies are now at war, but it's not just that. There are around 4 countries remaining which are neutral. That includes Brazil, the Western Union, Switzerland, and China. Brazil will rejoin the red team. The Western Union will technically rejoin the blue team, although it's kind of a different union, but they were on the blue team when they were just like the Northern Western Union. Now they are the Western Union and they joined the blue team. And as for China and Switzerland, they choose to remain neutral. This is a kind of surprising thing, but it's what happens. The Axis here outpowers the blue team, but the blue team has the geographical advantage being spread out all across the world. And when it does come to fighting on different fronts, Australia is a good distraction, the Philippines is a good distraction, Japan is a good distraction, whereas they can focus their manpower over here in Northern Africa and Europe. Wiping out Alaska and Brazil will be a priority for the blue team, but the red team, they could just send all their manpower into Europe and wipe out the blue team as soon as possible. But a new headline just struck the news, and someone just unveiled Operation Domination. Who revealed that? Why, Germany, of course. The yellow team declares war on both the Axis and the Allies at the same time, in hopes of wiping both alliances off the map at the same time while they're fighting each other in order to get domination over the world. That's right. We now have a 3-way war. A war between the Allies, the Axis, and the Central Powers, which is going to shake the world and maybe even lead to its destruction. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you guys are ready for the finale of the series, make sure to do all those things ×2. That's right, I want you to go tell your family to like and subscribe. Finale's next video. It's going to go down. It's probably going to be, it might be a little bit longer than usual. Depending on the amount of support this video gets, I will post it as soon as possible. I cannot say it's going to be Saturday, but you know, lots of support next Wednesday. Not so much support next Saturday. I'll let you guys pick and choose. I'm hyped up for this finale. I hope you are too. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And yeah, so I will see you guys in the next video. Here are the members. Thank you to all the super fans. This includes Yo Moma, Texan Cowboy Cheese, Kylie Speaks Plays, Maddox Score, Poland Country Ball, Dimitri, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, DW Cool Dude, All About Military, Soviet Ball, and Serminator. Once again, thank you guys.